You're listening to the Tooth Sleuth Podcast, all about the business of dentistry, hosted by yours truly, Greg Essenmacher, a fixed full arch dental expert and founder of G&A Consult, speaking with industry leaders on the dental landscape from their perspective. At G&A, we specialize in transforming full arch dental practices, teaching, coaching, and training teams to deliver an exceptional patient experience, from that first call to delivering final smiles. Whether you're a practice owner, a DSO executive, or a regional leader looking to expand your full arch program, boost same-store sales, or unlock the true profitability of full arch cases, we've got you covered. Ready to see how full arch can elevate your practice? Visit the show page or book a discovery call today. Let's turn your potential into results. Welcome back, everyone. Tooth Sleuth Podcast. So glad you joined. My name is Greg Essenmacher, the host. I think you know who I am, but if you don't, it's all right. Like, click, share, subscribe if you're on YouTube. I don't know. Just do whatever you do. My guest today, Cory Pinegar. I'm so excited to have him on the show. I've known Cory for a little while. Cory, I love the fact that you bought a company that I think was like next to nothing, and you're building it into an empire. But why don't you introduce yourself? Tell everybody who you are.
Awesome. Greg, first and foremost, thank you for having me on. Kind of the quick and dirty, my background is
I like dirty. My audience likes dirty. Give us the dirty.
I was going to good old BYU, which is not dirty back in the day. And I was a really early employee at Weave when it was 25 plus people. And I ended up purchasing a very small fragment, or the service arm of Weave, from them in December of 2016. It was doing like $250,000 in revenue, and they needed to cut employees and simplify the business. And so they sold it to me for $1, no strings attached.
Wow. For $1. I love it. Well, all right. Before we even go down the road of your business, I have to make a comment here, because none other than Brad Hughes, a good friend of mine on LinkedIn, bashed BYU just the other day. He was talking about brand, and he was talking about why people join teams and building teams, because you built a team, right? You bought it for $1. They needed to shed, right? Weave needed to shed some things. So you bought the service side of Weave in 2016 is what you just said. And he was talking about Duke basketball and why people go to Duke, right? It's for the brand. It's for all that. And of course, I piped in and I said, yeah, look at the NBA and how many players came from Duke compared to BYU basketball, and why compensation and money is not everything, and why BYU basketball. And he said, no shade. And I'm like, you're throwing shade. Why they have to pay people so much money to play basketball at BYU. So I want your response to that. And I'm going to shoot this over to Brad, and I'm going to make this a thing. So I would like your comment, Cory. How do you feel about the fact that Brad blew up BYU basketball and they have to play basketball at BYU?
I'm a BYU lover, but BYU fundamentally has flaws. They have a very strict, as you probably know, honor code, and it makes it incredibly difficult for us to retain good players. We just lost our star QB this summer because he got in trouble, and then he was going to be suspended by the school for 12 games, his senior season. So he had to leave. And I do not blame the players at all. And I think the only way BYU will attempt to compete is AJ, the star basketball player. You're referencing that they brought in the #1 recruit in the nation. They are paying between $7 and $8 million to play this season, which is more than a typical first-year NBA contract. It's crazy.
Wait a second. I just want to stay out of this. I'm not referencing. I'm saying that Brad was referencing. I'm just simply reporting facts.
Greenly vanilla. Like, BYU would be good, but they're never great and they're never bad. And because they work really hard to maintain a vanilla image, they get vanilla outputs.
Yeah. Well, and the quarterback over at BYU I was listening to a podcast a few months ago, and he was talking about the fact that he did not fit in, right? So he wasn't one of the typical LDS members. And yeah, he was Jewish. Was he not Moorish? Yeah, he was Jewish, right? When he was talking about his experience there, so different from Mormon, the LDS community there. And he was talking about his experience and what it was like being there. So, and I actually didn't hear that about him, that he was going to be suspended and that he's not going to be the quarterback this year. So I find it fascinating whenever building teams of what it takes to build a team. And so I want to talk about that and what you're doing over at Reach and building a team there, because it's never the straight line of here's my plan. I'm going to build a team. You can create a business plan all you want. You can go to Harvard Business School and create a business plan on paper. But the actuality of it, because you're dealing with humans and you're dealing with, I don't know, the business of dentistry and how much it's evolved and changed and shifted just in the last 6 months, let alone 12, 18, 24 months post-COVID. Post-COVID, right? Well, there's a controversial phrase. Shall we just like dive into that for a little while? But just as quickly as it's modifying. So talk to me about what it's been like building a team for you.
Yeah, this is a great question. So I think my dad, I grew up around a dad who was gone for business all the time, and by external standards would be seen as quite successful in the business world. And I always heard him or other people say, wow, when you have a great team, it's just that much different. And if I'm super honest, when I started my business or bought that small fragment from Weave, I had no clue, Greg, what a good team really was. And so for our first 3 to 5 years, and no slander against anyone we had on our team during that time, we were mediocre. And so the business greatly struggled to perform at an incredibly high level. Only when I found, whoa, you get some A players together and see what they create. Instead of pulling a rock up a hill, you find yourself to be sitting on the rock, getting pushed up by your team. And so that difference of getting it right, and when you really find that magic moment, it's worth every investment and every change it takes to get there. Because either as a leader, you're burning the midnight oil, or you're like, I did it good, and then the team we have can do it even better.
And it reminds me of the phrase, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember who said it, but I don't ever want to be the smartest person in the room, right? Being able to lean on the skills, and it's Phil Jackson in his book, 11 Rings, even though he couldn't beat my bad boys Pistons in 89 and 90, even with Michael Jordan. The truth is, he talks about in leadership that it's not each of the individuals, but it's empowering each of the team members, right? So finding the skill that they're really good at, because the person who is amazing at an Excel spreadsheet might be terrible at empathy, but empowering each of them in their lane and their skill set of what they're really good at, empowering them, but not ceding your overall authority. That is what leadership is all about. That is how you get the best out of everyone. And then he takes his skills to LA with the Lakers, and he's got Shaq and Kobe. And he has other players that are fairly good players and top A-list players on other teams that want to come to the Lakers and take a secondary role and be role players to get the rings, to get the championships, right? To win. And that's what I think I hear you saying, is being able to bring in those A players and learn from them and let them push you forward. Is that what I'm hearing?
100%. So your love for Phil Jackson is my love for Nick Saban. There is a famous 60 Minutes interview that he did where come on, I don't know, bring it, not an Alabama fan? I'm not an Alabama fan, but I can respect the
Go
game.
Blue. I'm a Michigan fan, right? So
Hey, well, I offer my deepest condolences for your Alabama beatdown. But Nick Saban says, very similar to what Phil talked about, that mediocre players hate A players, and A players hate B players. And what I think he does so great about building a team is what you just said. He finds amazing talent. He holds them to a standard. Nick Saban was never chummy on the sidelines. He was berating people, but he got the best damn talent out there, because just as you talked about with Duke, people go to Duke to go to the NBA. You're not going to Duke because, oh, great, I'm going to have an awesome time. You're going to work your ass off, but you're going to be around people who take you to the next level. And then the final thing that I think we haven't talked about is find great talent, hold them to a great standard, but build an amazing process or system. What Nick Saban talked about is systems. And every play, instead of paying attention to the scoreboard, we play the play as if it's completely independent. And if we do that right, at the very end of the game, we are going to win. But if we play to the scoreboard, we're either trying hard or trying less. There's a really famous situation in the national championship. They had won the game. It's in the fourth quarter. They're up by a considerable amount. And the offensive lineman and the QB get into a physical altercation on the field about not following the system and not giving effort on a single play. And Nick Saban in that 60-minute interview goes, this is what I'm talking about when you find great people, drive accountability, and play around a system. You win games, but you're actually not focused on winning the games.
Well, and what you're pointing out here, so much is coming to mind, right? So that's the outcome. The outcome is the scoreboard, right? Absolutely. We have to talk about P&Ls, profitability, business, and all that. But the process and system, which is what we focus on at G&A Consult, is if we can put the system and process in place, when we come into your practice, when we come into your group and we work with you, if we're putting the system and process in place that we know works, eventually we work ourselves out of a consulting gig, because we shouldn't be that permanent fixture on your payroll. And we shouldn't be doing it for you. We should be doing it with you. And we should be customizing with you. And that's the key that we know that works. And the other thing, you talk about Alabama and national championship games, and it just reminded me, right? Football season has started. It's alive and well. Look at the Super Bowl champions last year, the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts could not be a better example of this. He was pulled from a national championship game, and Tua drives down the field for a game-winning touchdown. And look at Jalen Hurts now, right? Because of his upbringing, being brought up, his morals, his compass, and the discipline that he has, he's able to take that and move forward with it and learn from it. That's an A player, right? Somebody who can go through that experience. And leveling up your team members, holding them accountable to a different standard, not to the outcome of, did you get the game-winning touchdown, son? It's, how did you respond to adversity? What was your sportsmanship like? Did you support the team above self? And we see that play out all over in dentistry. The ones that, quote, win are the ones that are team first and bring their individual skill to support the team as a whole. Are you finding that with your team? Because it sounds like that there is a shift. You said for those first 5 years, and now in these last 3 or 4, that, I mean, I've seen your business grow to tremendous levels. The accountability, I don't know if you have core values or operating principles. We do got operating principles at G&A Consult, but I've really seen it live out and breathing through all of your teammates, right? Jonathan McGrath comes to mind, right? I mean, he is the embodiment of, living for the team and really being so authentic in that. And that comes from you, right? That comes from the leader. So tell me a little bit about that. How has that been evolving, and how do you see that playing out with your team?
To be honest, I think it all, like, number one, it's the team that makes the success today. But I look at my first few years and I was never clear enough, and I was never willing to uphold the standard enough. And if you're going to grow a people heavy org and you think that success will naturally happen, it will not. You have to put in the work, but more so you have to coach and develop your team. And I come from Utah, which is probably very similar to some cultures in California where we are passively soft. Oh, everything's great. And inside I'm boiling hot. And I came from a family that is as unconfrontational as you could possibly find. And then my aunt said something to me years ago: kind is clear and clear is kind. And if you're really going to develop your team and make them into A players and hold them to a standard, if you are not directly talking about it and then talking about where you miss and where you can get better, that was the change. But the change had to come in from me first, of being willing to walk into those conversations and have them. Back in the day, I may say, oh, I'm going to talk to Greg about this today. And then I'd walk in and chatter around it, or I would be incredibly indirect. And so it felt like we were working really hard those first 5 years, but there wasn't alignment because there wasn't clarity and there wasn't accountability.
Yeah, I love that. Kind is clear and clear is kind. That's fantastic. And I'm going to borrow that, if you don't mind, from your aunt. So we'll lift that up.
We'll trademark it with her name on it, but we're willing to share it with you just for today.
Perfect. I love that you're willing to share that. It reminds me of the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. He talks about that. And I read that book back when I was a part of leadership over at Neodent, a part of the Strawman group. And then again, it was brought back into my consciousness about 5 months ago. And I started listening to the Audible book on it. And it was as if a light bulb went off and I had heard it for the first time, where I had to take ownership of all of it. If something was not right in my team and performance wasn't there, it's on me. I was not clear in the directives. I was not clear in the training. I was not clear in the directive, the initiative, and all of it. It was on me. And it really was a turning point, because then the accountability started to change. And it also, there was also some fallout from that. And that's okay, because those players that weren't aligned then were no longer a part of the organization. They self-ejected, if you will. And that, I think, is so critically important. Yeah.
You talked about fallout, and I think that's something we as leaders sometimes think is, well, I at least thought was, oh, you can just shapeshift everyone and mold them into who you want to be. Fallout to up the standard and up the game is unfortunately inevitable. Now, you should have the hiring processes and standards where those are minimized going forward. But when we had to turn the boat around of our business, guess what? The ejectocito button had to happen a lot. And I look back as being, again, not, even though in your gut, you may know it's not right, but you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait, and you inevitably do a ton of damage on that waiting game, instead of having those kind but clear conversations of, hey, here's where you're at. Here's where we're going. This doesn't work, but we will allow you to gracefully go elsewhere. Again, significantly hampered that turnaround. It felt like we were turning around a cargo ship instead of making a decision based on what we knew to be true.
And it's, it's about leveling up, and we talk about level up at G&A Consult, and I'm still learning that. I would like to say that I have learned that lesson, but the truth is that it's ever evolving. And as a leader, I am learning that. And it is one of the things that I continue to be a student of life. And as a leader, there is a comfort and there is a protection when you're a part of a corporation, a part of an organization, like I was at Strawman Group. And before that, for the 18 years that I've been in dental, for those first 14 years, where in leadership positions, when I'm not ultimately responsible for these last 4 years as the owner, the founder, the CEO of G&A Consult, when I'm responsible for ultimately all of the decisions. I have a senior advisor to my business who is extremely well versed in the industry, and I thank God for her every day. However, it's different. And I'm sure you've seen that since 2016, because you've got experience behind you as well, working for others and now working for yourself, and that evolution. And you have more years behind you. And I'm sure we're going to take this conversation offline, where we can have some conversation about what that looks like. What is the one lesson right now that you are learning still? 9 years into this venture, I think it's 9 years. Have I added my fingers up right? It's 9 years into this venture.
You didn't go to BYU, but your math is good today.
Oh, that's good. Well, being from Detroit, sometimes you lose fingers after, Devil's Night and they burn things down, but they've stopped that, thank goodness. But I've been in Phoenix since '99, so maybe it's the heat and losing. I don't know. So what's the one thing that you're working on now, learning, that you could share with my listening audience, where they could identify if they're an entrepreneur and saying, okay, at this stage, it's comforting to know that I could still be learning that, so I don't feel like I'm so far behind.
Number one, I think the longer you do it, the less you realize you know. There's certain points where you are like, wow, we've really got it right. Today, I have well over 1,000 team members that report through the companies that I own. And if I've learned anything, is every 6 months, my job is completely different. And, at the very beginning, what I sharpened my teeth on was, how do you go to a conference yourself? And how do you meet customers and shake hands and kiss babies and win business? But eventually you can't be at every conference. We're 400 conferences slated for 2026.
Wow.
I can go to a small number of that. And so it's, how do you continue to change, and the humility to acknowledge you were good here, but tomorrow is a different day and you have to be completely different. And that waking up and that challenging is what I love, but also what challenges me in an immense way where yesterday's performance truly does not matter because today's problems are different. We can still use history, but we have to have the humility to reinvent and bring a team around us that can actually make that vision a reality.
Yeah, that humility through growth is a tremendous asset for anyone, not just those entrepreneurs, but anyone in business, whether they're a clinician, as an owner, or a part of a group, or an entrepreneur, or even any of those that are working for a manufacturer that are listening to this, which is a part of my listening audience. So I appreciate that authenticity in your answer and that transparency and the vulnerability, which is a big part of my listening audience and guests that come onto the Tooth Sleuth podcast. So thank you for that, Cory. Well, this is the part of the program that all my guests, over 120 some odd episodes, play a little something called What the Sleuth is Going On, Cory. So it's 3 rapid fire questions. First thing that comes to mind, are you ready to play?
Ready?
All right. Question number 1. What's the worst bad breath you've ever encountered?
Ooh, it's a family member. So I can't go too deep on it, but someone I swear that's in my immediate family does not brush their teeth. And I work in
It's
dentistry.
not the ant, is it? It's not the kind is clear and clear is kind ant.
I know I got to work on it in-house. Hey, we're all guilty of crimes at some point.
And I'll let you tag that person on socials.
Yeah, hey, there we go. That's fair game. Because then I don't have to deal with it up front. It can be a passive LinkedIn comment. That's a great precedent.
Question number 2. If you could change one thing about your smile, what would it be?
Ooh, I actually think I would eventually get full arch. I have very small teeth, and so I would eventually love. I'm 31, and so I feel young to do it, but my smile is one of my least favorite things about me, and I'd love to change it eventually.
Oh, come on now. You got a good smile. You smiled a few times. So those that are just listening,
Hey, if we're all gonna be honest here, I'm gonna shoot the shit in the straight up way.
I love it. Right? No, honesty is a good thing for sure. Okay. Question.
I couldn't be honest on the first question, so I got to go all in on myself on the second one.
He just wouldn't disclose on the first one. I get it. Yeah. Question number 3. If you could go back and be the inventor of any dental product and no, you cannot choose your own, which one would you choose and why?
Dentrix, because I think it was one of the first core electronic systems to start centralizing information.
Oh, I love that. That's a great answer, right? Centralized information, so important. Transparency of those records, awesome.
And here's why. I'm going to give you a longer answer and you didn't ask for it. Thank you for coming to my platform for today. Here's my gripe with dentistry. If I had one thing that could have been, and it's difficult to fix today, but it still needs to be fixed, is you and I and our businesses are using Salesforce or HubSpot. We know the moment someone comes to our website to when they submit a lead to when our sales team talks to them. Our follow-ups are automated. Then we see when someone signs. So from the moment someone hits our website till the moment they cancel, we have a journey. Within dentistry, it revolves around patients. And so there's only clear data when someone becomes a patient of record. We have a black hole in our industry when people say, "Oh, Greg, how's your front desk doing?" Most people say, "Good." Well, if someone came to me and said, "How's your sales team doing?" I know to the dollar and how many calls they did last week, how many of them showed, where they came from. When we talk to a front desk team member, and this is not their problem, it's the system, they say, "Oh, great, Mr. Pinegar, call us back when you're ready to schedule." In the sales world, there's maniacal follow-up, and that's what you talk about and teach about. But there is just this massive void that we have fragmented away and has not been solved. And the core idea of a PMS is very similar to a CRM, but half of the circle is missing. Thank you for my soapbox.
No, I appreciate that you bring that forward because I've been preaching that for a while. And specifically in implants and full arch, there is a great disparity to be able to take the revenue at the end and start to tie it into the patients and tie it into the calls and how many were made, and to tie that, the touch points, and tie that into the actual campaign. right, into the Google ad or the Meta ad or the specific campaign to know what is the effectiveness and the outcome for the true ROI without it being a manual process. And the ability and capability is there, but the effectiveness of some type of software. And yeah, there might be something in the works. So stay tuned.
I hope there is.
How's that for a clipping?
We will happily promote it.
All right, I'm holding you to that. This is recorded, and we've
Let me sign on the screen here for you.
Exactly. There you go. I appreciate that. All right. Well, in the last few minutes, Cory, is there anything I haven't asked you that you'd like to share with my listening audience before we close out the show today?
Yeah, I actually want to kind of loop onto something you just said. I think we have the ability to see thousands of practices, and I don't think people are fully aware that we hear the numbers, but to like beat the dead horse on this one, people are not fully aware of how much opportunity slips away in clinical care and revenue and profit from their front desk. I'm going to give one piece of data in closing. 32% of all phone calls to date this year have gone unanswered. 32% of your new patient opportunities, 32% of your existing patients that called in a moment of emergency. You have a funnel or a gas tank that has a massive gash in it. You have to fix it. And there's many other versions of that within your front.
I love it. Thank you so much for that too. And I mean, that's just an eye-popping number, right? We like to talk about leaks in the hose, but for sure, I mean, the leak in the gas tank too is even more relevant, especially if you have an open flame nearby. So my guest today on the Tooth Sleuth podcast has been Cory Pinegar, CEO of Reach, a fast-growing dental service company based in Utah. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a lively conversation. Appreciate you, Cory.
Greg, go Cougars.
If you need help with converting lead calls into consultations, closing consults into more full arch cases, or creating a more strategic marketing message and branding for your practice or group, follow me for more tips or reach out to G&A Consult for a discovery call today.